As your Dr. Robert idea about the positive and negative information that could be affected the volatility of the stock market, I have a question about my country, Iran. As you know, Iran faced to world sanction and faced to shock of the economy. I want to know that if the country like Iran that could be affected about the world sanction and shock of the economy that make to increase inflation daily, increase daily inflation. I want to know that what about the stock prices volatility? What's your idea about this stock market?
Well, the U.S. obviously has a very complicated relation with Iran. I don't know whether you saw some of the presidential debates, but they featured such silly issues as should we talk or should we not. I am hopeful that the U.S. will take a more active role in opening dialogue with Iran in the near future, and I'm hoping that Iran will reciprocate in ways that are productive to both economies and productive to stability in the region. I think that the risk of war and terrorism should drive both countries to being more accommodative and finding common solutions to our joint problems. And I think it's going to be a difficult task, but that's what I would hope would happen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Wan Mokhtar Wan Yusof. I am from University Kebangsaan, Malaysia. Given the chance, I would like to speak in Malay, but I'm addressing this to Tun in English. I would like to refer, Tun, to the last statements in your delivery. I quote, "We now need a global solution to a global problem. We now need a new system of banking and international regimes. It is now opportune to think very seriously and deeply into these ideas." And you mentioned we shall not have any cosmetic solutions. I totally agree with all those. And I have always looked up to you to have the ability to handle volatility and risk for the past years in your premiership. And there is a word that I always relate to my students. We need affirmative actions in many things that we have to do. Now, you did mention the beginning of all this is the delinking of the money to the gold standards. Suppose that's referring to the Bretton Woods Agreement. Would you now say that the beginning of this new era for international architecture to begin with the relinking of the money to the gold standards? And the very important question for Malaysia, do you see in the near future a leader that will go up to the stage with affirmative actions to be able to settle the political turmoil that we are not used to after 50 years of stability? Thank you.
Well, Tun, sorry, would you like me to leave the room when you answer this?
This is a very explosive subject. It is more than cosmetic treatment. But I feel that when we went off the gold standard, that's when the problem begins. It's because you can print any amount of money. Just print them, and then it is given a certain value, and we accept the value. What prevents people from producing or printing as much money as they like? Perhaps it is fear of inflation. But when we trade, we are trading using pieces of paper, and we think they have a value, but really they don't. They can be devalued or revalued. That's what happened to the ringgit in 1997. These are pieces of paper, and people suddenly say, no, it is now worth so much. And the next day they say, oh, it's gone down again. Because there is no intrinsic value in this paper currency. But if you have something solid, something that can be sold in the market, some commodity, then you know that you have the commodity and you can sell the commodity. That is why when we went off the gold standard, we are giving too much freedom for people to play around with money. The amount of money that is being used nowadays is huge. We talk of $1 trillion. Now, even in Malaysia, we have billionaires. I'm looking forward to the time when we'll have trillionaires. And I don't know what else after that. Because there's so much money around. Of course, this contributes towards growth. Without the money, we cannot develop our country. But there must be a limit to the amount of money that should be used or put in circulation. If you tie it to gold or some other valuable commodity, then you have to back the currency with gold. Now a lot of people say, but gold is bulky, you cannot put it in your pocket and go to Singapore and buy anything, or you go to England, you cannot put money in your pocket, you need some pieces of paper. I'm not talking about using gold for domestic business, for domestic transactions. I'm talking about gold for international trade. And if two countries trade with each other, there will be a time when one country would have bought more than what it sells. So the need is only to pay the balance. I think bankers know all about these things. I don't. But I believe that banks do have clearing houses for the checks that they deal with. So it's the same with clearing the balance of trade between countries. Even if there are several countries involved, we can still work out how much is the balance that has to be paid by one country to another. So the amount of gold that needs to be around is not as big as we make it out to be. At the same time, if there is a balance against any country, the following year that country can actually export more in order to get rid of the deficit that it has in international trade. I think we have worked this out with the central bank in Malaysia. I thought they have got the formula right, but for some reason or other it's not being implemented. People are still very conservative. They do not want to get away from the present system. Also, they feel there it's dangerous to do so. But by having backing in with something valuable, then we know there is value to the currency. In the good old days, when they issue a note, they guarantee that you can redeem the note in terms of gold, so much gold. US dollar started off with being 1/35 ounce of gold to $1. Of course, now it's not that much. But when you get away from gold as a standard, then the tendency is to produce any amount of money. And the gullible public accepts that as money. But actually these are tokens, somewhat like the tokens people use when they play games, snake and ladders and things like that. You see, so we are being taken for a ride, basically. That's why I think we should work out a system which gives some backing to the currency that we can use. Thank you.
Robert, do you want to comment on this gold standard idea?
Well, I hate to follow that comment because we backed away from the gold standard years ago in the U.S. and I think that the value of the currency is really what you can buy with it. It's not what backs behind, what's standing behind it. And if the government inadvisedly prints money that doesn't have any backing behind it, then it loses value, and therefore the value of money to buy goods and services goes down. We have inflation. And that's the main concern that people have with governments printing money. It leads to inflation. But in fact, this financial crisis we're having now is not associated with inflation at all. It's associated with asset market bubbles and especially credit market bubbles, which I don't think have really a strong backing in currency valuations. So I don't really think that switching back to the gold standard actually would have solved this problem. I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
Thank you.
I see that you appear not addressing the role played by these institutions and personalities in causing world money crisis. And the next one is, you talk about terrorism, but why terrorism exists? And third, how can there be peace if the major cause of wars is not solved? Thank you.
Sorry, can you just summarize your questions? I don't think Robert got them all. Just the three questions, right? You were asking. One is the role of supras, right? The supranational institutions, World Bank, IMF, etc.
Yes.
Secondly was on terrorism.
Terrorism, because Professor mentioned something about terrorism just now. So I asked why terrorism exists.
Why terrorism exists?
Yes.
Oh, that's not for an economist,
Why it happened.
And the third question?
The third question is, you talk about peace. Yes. But how can there be peace if major causes of wars not solved?
Okay. I really don't think you're the most suitable person, but he asked you the question, so you have to.
Well, I think the first part is about the supranational organizations, and I guess the Fed is probably not really a supranational organization. There's been a lot of discussion about what kind of organization really could be useful in formulating coherent regulatory policy for all these diverse institutions and diverse countries. The IMF has been discussed. Many places in the world don't feel like the IMF has good credibility. The UN has been discussed. Other places in the world don't think the UN is capable of this kind of task. My feeling is that we're going to see a new type of coordinated organization which will be formed just for this purpose, and I do think that the G20 is trying to be the body that sets it up, but I'm not sure whether that will end up being what we see.